everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Black Girl Mental Highlights. Hi, I'm Morgan, and I'm sitting here on Zoom, right, with Kaela Farrise. She is a therapist. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. She is a researcher. She is an activist. She is an advocate. She's the founder of Therapy While Black. So, Kaela, how are you doing today on this beautiful Saturday afternoon?
I'm doing okay. It's a nice day outside. The sun is shining. I was able to get out for a little bit and take my morning walk. And there's a lot going on in the world. So definitely a mixed bag at the moment, but doing okay, taking care of myself.
Awesome, awesome. We're doing the best we can, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for us and for our clients. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of clients, right? Tell us, how did you get to where you currently are? What was your educational journey?
Yeah. So I did my undergrad degree at Stanford. I majored in African and African American studies as well as urban studies. And as you know, probably picked up, I did not major in psychology. I did not know actually a lot about psychology or the mental health field when I graduated. So my path was a little bit more roundabout, but generally, I've always been really interested in kind of helping our community in like systems and how we can better support people through really challenging experiences. And did a bunch of different things after graduating. I worked as a behavior technician for families with a child or children on the autism spectrum, which was really interesting work. And I just happened to get almost all families of color, which in the area that I was living in was really not the overall population. And it kind of started to spark, some questions as to like, well, why are we doing these interventions? And what about these like external factors? Like, questions like how do we prepare maybe a Black boy on the autism spectrum to interact with police, right? Or things like that. How are we thinking about these things? Like what sorts of things are we kind of centering and valuing in the work that we're doing? Have had my own mental health journey and interacted with a bunch of different mental health professionals who weren't always, we'll say, who weren't always culturally affirming or culturally competent or responsive in a way that felt good. And I think a bunch of different experiences kind of drew me to being really curious about therapy, about being a therapist, about, how I might impact change through mental health. So went back to school, got my master's in clinical psych and went through the whole process to get licensed as a marriage and family therapist and was licensed a couple years ago. And now I am practicing and I have my own private practice, as you said. And then I'm also in a PhD program in clinical psychology. So getting more mental health focused education.
Mm. Wow, wow. Man, oh man, I'm telling you, between the classes and the clients, yeah, that's something that I'm balancing now. It's like one thing when
Mm,
you look at the textbooks, and it's another thing when it's like, oh, okay, this is actually a real person looking at you.
mhm.
And there are times I'll listen to my clients, I'll be like, wow, this person really should talk to a therapist. And then
It's me.
me.
Oh, wait a minute.
It's
I'm
me.
that person.
It's me. I'm the therapist. Ah. So yes, so thinking about, the ways in which you were always really passionate about Blackness, about Black culture, about studying that, right? And then going through your own journey, your own struggles, and then through that, being able to be exposed to what this whole world of mental health is like, that this is a way to help people, with this whole therapy thing. So tell me, right? So that you when you work with clients, right? You specifically work with trauma, right? And
Mhm,
also anxiety. So tell me,
mhm.
why did you pick kind of those two lenses to focus on?
Yeah. Um, I think I've always been really interested in trauma is maybe a weird thing, but I've always been really interested in the way that trauma impacts both functioning, it impacts and ripples through communities. And I certainly saw that, in my own family and my own community growing up. And when it was time to choose like a site to do my practicum, I ended up choosing a domestic violence shelter as my first site to do therapy. And that really aligned with the type of therapist that I wanted to be. One, because I think oftentimes folks who need services most acutely don't necessarily get them because of a whole bunch of kind of logistical stuff and just all sorts of barriers. And so that's actually what my doctorate research is about, how we get those mental health interventions to the people who are least able to access them. But yeah, it was certainly super hard, but also something that I felt like, okay, like I can do this. I can do this work. And so that has kind of been my trajectory since then. I've worked in a number of different places, but always really interested in certain types of traumatic experiences, whether that be domestic violence, sexual assault, childhood sexual abuse. Even when I haven't been working specifically in those spaces, those are the kind of cases that I've ended up getting. And I think any clients that I see, I feel so honored to be able to do the work and hold space. But especially with my clients, I just feel like it's such a privilege for people to be willing to be so vulnerable, and share this like hardest thing often that has ever happened to them with me and allow me to support them through it. So yeah, it just felt like a good fit, and I think I'm pretty good at it. I think my clients would say I'm pretty good at it. But that's kind of how I got there, looking at how the trauma can impact generations if there isn't some sort of intervention.
Wow, yeah, that's powerful stuff. That's also really heavy stuff.
Mhm.
I see your sweatshirt, it says boundaries on it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Where did you get it from? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, so I have a little Therapy While Black shop that people can also go to, but it has a couple of different merch pieces, including the boundary sweatshirts in a couple of different colors, as well as Therapy While Black stuff. And I think you can just go to therapywhileblack.com to find the merch.
Oh, okay. Quick plug. We
Mhm.
have some amazing merch designed by a beautiful Black woman. Awesome,
Mhm.
awesome. Okay. And so thinking, about boundaries, right?
Mhm.
What are some ways that you maintain boundaries in your life? Like, what are some ways that you hold space for yourself and really integrate self-care as you do this really heavy community building, trauma-informed work?
Yeah. For me, primarily, it looks like making sure that I have containers for the work. And so, a lot of that is about ritual, like making sure that before I kind of move into my therapy practice for the day, I am like centering myself, maybe going for a walk, kind of having some sort of like transition moment. And the same when I'm done with my therapy for the day. So usually when I'm done with seeing clients for the day, I will just go for a walk around the neighborhood. It used to be very clear because, when I was working in person, you get up and you go home and you have that drive home to kind of be your natural transition point and decompression point. But now that I work from home and I see clients virtually, I've had to kind of recreate those things for myself. So making sure there's something to like indicate to my body that we're switching in and out of this space has been really important. Having my own therapist, shout out to Vanessa, she's great. Seeing my own therapist regularly is super important, and making sure that they have the capacity to hold space for other people. Obviously taking breaks when I need them, and just making sure that I have the support and community that I need to be well, going to see my friends, hanging out with my partner, hanging out with my dog. That's all a part of how I stay balanced enough to be able to do this work.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I'm definitely taking mental notes as a baby therapist and Yeah, just trying to learn how to balance it all. So thank you for sharing that. The ability to have containers for things, the ability for your body to really have a natural way to decompress, to distance yourself in a sense, and yeah, doing all the things that you really love and enjoy. Um,
Hmm.
and so, I would be remiss as an interviewer if I didn't ask you about Therapy While Black as an organization, right? How did that start?
Yeah, so Therapy While Black came out of just wanting to do more in 2020. It started in 2020 in the fall, kind of after, the summer of really intense hyper visibility of anti-Black violence and, protesting and calling for change in that moment, the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many others. Um, just wanting, I think similarly to what you talk about with this with Black Girl Mental, right, is just like wanting to have a space to be able to like share the knowledge that I have. I've, done all this education and I know all these things. And I just wanted to be able to make kind of mental health feel less scary for folks who are looking, to feel more accessible, to be able to answer folks' questions. Because I had so many like friends and friends of friends and, people who were like 1 degree or 2 degrees removed asking me like, can you help me find a therapist, right? Like, what do I ask? What do I say? What do I look for? um, and which was super exciting to have people like kind of, engaging in therapy for the first time, but also recognizing it is super scary and not every therapist is the right fit for every person. So it really is meant to be kind of a source of education, a source of hopefully like normalizing and combating stigma of seeking mental health services in the Black community, of helping educate other therapists, which is a big part of um, what we have done so far, and making sure that they are able to be the type of therapist that the Black community needs, and more. So a lot of speaking, a lot of workshops, and just like engaging with the community via social media and other events and things like that.
Wow, wow, incredible. And like what an impact it's had. Just since
Mm.
2020 in these 3 short years, like absolutely, like what an impact it's had. Because so many people have resonated. I think that
Mhm.
you really through your posts and Instagram, it's like such a short form way to convey information, right? It's not a whole book, it's not a research paper. But
Mhm.
through that, there are people who deeply resonate, who kind of finally have language, right, to describe experiences, and to normalize, right, as you were saying, to normalize some of these things that have been made abnormal, right, through
Right.
generational trauma and generational perception
Right.
and things like that. So yeah, really is an amazing organization. Um, and so just thinking about how amazing that organization is, right? Thinking about just all that you've been able to accomplish through your education and yeah, just the depth of experience that you've been able to acquire, right? Thinking about your present self and thinking about your past self, right? Your past self or even a little girl out there who wants to do what you do, who wants to be like you. What are some words of encouragement that you would offer that little girl?
Oh man, so many things. I think chief among them is that we need you. You are welcome. There is a space for you to belong in the mental health field. I think a lot of times folks get really discouraged by some of the limits, shortcomings of the education and really just like not seeing themselves represented, or seeing their communities represented. And so I would just say keep going. We are creating these really beautiful spaces that are able to center and honor like in my case like the Black community experiences, right, but there are all of these spaces that exist and have existed that we don't necessarily learn about in kind of the traditional education, but we're out here, we are being ourselves, we are able to integrate our cultural practices, and more Black therapists are so needed, more Black mental health researchers are so needed. So come join us, we can't wait to see you.
Yay. Oh, that was beautiful. I'm telling you, you're speaking to me. You were
Mhm.
speaking to me as well as I am on my. So that concludes our time together. Thank you so, so much, Kaela, for being here today. And for all of you viewers out there, if you would like to hear more from Kaela, you want to be up to date with all the stuff that's coming out, right? Not only is she taking, she has some adult slots available right now for individual therapy in the state of California only. Sorry to everybody else, but yes, only
Mhm.
in the state of California. And you can keep up with her and what she has going on at Therapy While Black on Instagram. And so
Mhm.
that concludes our time together. Take care, everybody. See you on next episode of BlackGirlMental Highlight.